Welcome back, Fantasy Fiction Fanatics. It's great to see you again, and I hope you're doing well. Today, I thought it would be fun to talk about when do you decide to drop a book? Because recently, I was also contemplating this decision on whether I should drop a book or not, or whether I should try and read more. And so I just thought it'd be fun to talk with you guys about when I think it would be a good time to drop a book versus trying to push through. And to also see what you guys think about when is an appropriate time to drop a book versus not. And so if you end up liking these 5 reasons to drop a book, subscribe. That would be really great, and it would support this channel, or give me a thumbs up. That would be really nice too. So hopefully you will stick around and watch a little bit more on my channel. That would be great. That would be really nice. So anyway, let's go ahead and jump in to my little 5 tips here, or 5 times that I drop a book. The first one is at the very beginning, you just get a chapter or 2 in and you're already unsure about this book. You just feel very off-put by this. This happened to me recently. This is why I was debating whether I should move forward or not with this book. And I think it's okay to decide to drop a book. It's okay if you choose to move forward with it too a little bit longer, but I don't feel like you should force yourself to just plunge through a book that you're just, even from the very beginning, you're like, I don't think I can make it through this whole book. I've only read 2 chapters and I'm already so unsure about whether this is a good book for me. Don't force it. There's a lot of other books out in the world. You should just be like, okay, give yourself a point that you're gonna be like, if I don't end up liking it better by this time, and don't make it halfway through the book. Make it maybe to chapter 5. Maybe you're on chapter 2 or 3 and you're like, still want to give it a chance. Make it to chapter 5. Make it to chapter 6, something like that. Or make it through, if you're reading on Kindle, okay, I'm gonna read the first 15%, something like that. And if you just it's not doing it for you, just kick it to the curb. There are better books out there. Don't waste your time on ones that may not just be your thing. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be that you have to say it's a bad book. It might be a bad book for you, but it's not necessarily a bad book. It's just not your thing. It's not what you're into. And so, yeah, that's what I would say is, if you just start off and you don't like it, don't try and force yourself to read the whole thing. Especially when you've just started it, it's so much easier to back out than when you're 3/4 through and then you're like, well, I've already gotten this far. You haven't gotten that far. Just move on. Number 2, you aren't excited to return to it. So you're reading it, you might enjoy it while you're reading it, you put it down, you walk away to do something, and then you're just like, I don't feel like going back there. I don't really want to go and pick it up and read it. I'd rather go and read this book, or I feel more enticed by something else. You can drop the book if you want to. You don't have to. You can try and force yourself, but if it's really an effort to get you to go back and feel excited to read that book, you're probably not enjoying it like you think you are. You're probably just reading it and it's fine, but it's nothing that you're really happy about. So halfway through the book even, you're still not really excited to go back and you're just like, why don't I feel like going back? Drop the book. It's okay. Read something that you're excited about. Maybe that's a book that you can try and return to it at another time and see if you're more interested in it then. But if it really is just not grabbing you, it probably is not that good of a book. It's probably, you might think that it's a good book while you're reading it, while you might be like, oh, I'm engaged in this, I'm interested. But if you're not interested enough to return, it's not hooking your interest. It might be temporarily hooking your interest because you're already immersed in that story, but it really isn't immersing you enough to want to see what happens next. So if it's really, really that hard to get back to it, if you have to push yourself a little bit, maybe it's just a harder time to read something like that, keep the book. It's not about just tossing things to toss things. But if you just truly, it's like you really feel like, man, I would rather go do something else than return to that book, it's not enticing you enough. Number 3, if you've read at least half or more and are just not enjoying it, I think it's okay to give yourself permission to be like, I was enjoying to this point, but now I just think that events are stupid. I don't really like how it's playing out. I feel like this is unrealistic. There's just something about the story that is even though you've made it halfway, maybe 2/3 done with the book, and you feel like you've invested a lot in it, but you're just really this character took a turn to the worst. I really don't like this character anymore, and I really don't really care about whether I find out what happens to them anymore. I know it seems kind of like crazy that I'm like, okay, halfway through to 2/3, maybe even 3/4, to just drop a book and not read the ending. But I feel like at that point, if you're that far through and you're really just not liking the book, I'm not really sure how you got through there, through to that point. But it probably something changed or something happened that just really is rubbing you the wrong way. And I'm giving you permission that if it's just, you're really just not liking this book, you're just like, I want to burn this book, but I will have to finish it because I made this investment. Don't make the mistake of forcing yourself. Again, it's all about there's better books out there. I don't want you to give up on every book. I don't want you to not try to finish books, but it's all about enjoyment. If you are not enjoying it, if something happened to switch it to where it's not a good fit for you, don't feel forced to just read the rest of it just to make yourself feel like you've accomplished it and that you have to because you've invested time. That sink cost fallacy really is not real. You're just wasting more of your time finishing the book when you could be reading a fun book or something that you really enjoy if you just drop that book. Instead, you're going to waste more of your time finishing if that's what you choose to do. So I'm just giving you permission. It's okay, even if you're all the way like really far through the book and something happens where now you're just not liking it at all. Don't push yourself. Or sometimes you're just thinking, it's okay, I'm gonna just try, I'm just reading through to see if it gets better, and it hasn't yet, then it's not gonna. If you are over halfway through, it's not gonna get better. So it's okay to drop it. Number 4, sequels that aren't as good or don't get better. So in this case, I'm thinking like, say you read the first book and it was okay, it was average. You'll read another one because you're thinking, well, maybe the next one it'll like evolve a little bit and I'll like it better, or I'm gonna see if I still feel the same thing about the next one. You know, whatever reason is like it was a decent book, or sometimes it's a very good book on the first one and the next one is terrible. But if you get through to sequels that aren't good, you can just drop it. You can drop that series. You can drop those things. Okay, so book 1 wasn't that great and book 2 is not much better. It's probably not a series that's for you. If book 1 was really, really good and book 2 kind of sucked, I can see you maybe trying book 3 because you were still enticed by book 1. But if it doesn't get better again, it's obviously, again, not for you. They had one book that was really good and the rest are not worth mentioning. So it's okay to drop, in this case, a series. You don't have to read the whole series. If you like a book or if it's just okay and you're moving forward and it's not for you, then it's not for you. I'm sure you will find other series, and there's constantly new books coming out that you might enjoy better. And number 5 is, it's just not the kind of book you're in the mood for. This happens to me sometimes where it's like, I'm trying things because I think I'm gonna like it or I think I'm in the mood for something, and I start reading it and I'm just like, the story's good, the characters are good, but I don't want this kind of story right now. This is just not what I'm in the mood for. It's too dark, it's not dark enough. It's a high fantasy when I'm really feeling more of an urban fantasy or whatever else it might be. It's just not what I'm in the mood for. It doesn't mean that it's a bad book, but you can put it down and come back to it again. So I'm not saying drop this book forever in this case. This one is something where you can put the book down, read something else that's more what you're in the mood for, and then once you feel more like you're up for that kind of story, return to that book and try again. Because we don't want to discount a book when it's just not what we're in the mood for. It could be a really great book, but if you're not in the zone to read that kind of story or to have that kind of story, it's not going to feel good to you, and it's going to feel like, you're not interested. You're not going to want to pick the book back up. You're not going to want to get through. You're going to make it where you're not enjoying it. So if you just feel like instead of it being like it's just bad, like you think that it's good, but it's just unfortunately not grabbing you at this moment, but you already know you think you're going to like it, just think, okay, well, maybe I'm not in the mood for this kind of story, and try and find a different kind of story. Something that might be more whatever you feel like you're missing. Try something like that, and then later when you feel up to it, come back to the story and give it another go. Okay, so those are my tips of when to drop a book. Again, this doesn't mean I necessarily say drop every book just because a little tiny something is gone wrong. But I do think that there are times when people push through reading a book when they really just don't want to, and they just feel obligated, like, oh, I've started this book, or oh, I'm almost done with this book, or oh, I've read so many of this series, I have to read more even though I don't like them anymore. And those are the times when we can just drop them. We don't want to sink more time into books that we don't like. We'd rather much save our energy to reading books that we enjoy and reinforce the feeling of just loving to read. So I think it's perfectly fine to drop a book in the situations that I mentioned, especially if it's just leading to you not enjoying them. Let me know down below when you would drop a book, or when you feel like it's appropriate to push forward and to keep trying to read that book. I'd love to know your thoughts, your feelings, and anything else. So please let me know, and I will talk to you guys in the next one. Bye.